So Texas was hit with catastrophic flash floods. Neighborhoods were destroyed, over 100 lives lost, which is just absolutely terrible. And just 2 days earlier, a private company was literally seeding the clouds over that same region. But don't worry, says the media, definitely no connection. Just a coincidence. Move along. Nothing to see here, except NBC News now confirms the cloud seeding actually did happen. The timeline lines up, and now we're learning these weather modification programs are funded with millions in federal dollars, taking place in 9 states and firing chemicals into the sky and ground with zero public oversight. And yet, if you ask questions, you're a conspiracy theorist. Watch this.
You might have seen posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down here to the surface to help farmers? Because water vapor that's in the air needs something to grab onto, which is often like smaller than the tip of a pen. So you're thinking like pollens, particles of pollen or dust or even air pollution. So you see this graphic here. Basically what they do is they fly planes up there to give the water vapor something to grab onto. So it's a combination of silver iodide and salt, actually. And so the water vapor forms around that. Eventually it gets heavy enough and then falls to the surface of rain. So when that happens, we're talking really small amounts of rain. In fact, scientists have been debating for decades whether or not this is actually very effective to do. So even when it does work, Gotti, we're not talking about a lot of rain, certainly not the amount of rain that they saw in Texas last week.
And the timing of it, 2 days before, I mean, you know, again, anybody online that seems to be an expert these days would say, well, no, this is what, you know, started the flood or possibly like supercharged the soil so it was hydrophobic. Like, well, take us through the timeline here.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Gotti, because this cloud seeding, it works within like 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour, and then that's it. So that was done 2 days before. So the CEO is saying this. Other scientific research establishes that cloud seeding isn't going to trigger something like this, certainly not 2 days after they were doing it. They were only up in the air cloud seeding for about 20 minutes because, again, it's targeted to a pretty small area of land, which was not even over where the worst of this flooding was, Gotti. So we're talking 30 minutes to an hour, certainly not 2 days in advance.
Okay. So that's what so certainly there was no possibility. Let me just read for you this. This is also a mainstream news article saying there's no way that this is possible. Fact check, Texas floods, cloud seeding theories dismissed. Conspiracy theorists have blamed the devastating flash floods in Texas on cloud seeding, a technique used to chemically induce rainfall. Scientists have dismissed the theories as baseless. A DW fact check, which, by the way, one thing to note about that NBC video is that they had the founder of the company that is accused of doing the cloud seeding 2 days before. And you notice that of course, the CEO of that company is saying, no, of course our cloud seeding wouldn't have caused a catastrophic flood that took over 100 lives. What do you think the guy's going to say? I mean, why would you even ask him as if he's the expert? He's obviously going to cover for himself and say, we had nothing to do with this massive, tragic loss of life event. I mean, why would they even ask him? But here's the article. It says over 100 people have now been confirmed dead following flash floods in central Texas over the weekend, including 27 young campers and staff at a local girls' summer camp. It's just absolutely tragic and heartbreaking that this happened. And just the videos, the water just came out so fast. I mean, nobody had a chance. Unfortunately, despite meteorological professionals explaining in news outlets all over the world how and why such devastating flooding occurs, which of course they say climate change, right? That's their reasoning always. Parts of social media have become breeding grounds for disinformation. One popular conspiracy theory, which has been given credence by current and former U.S. political figures, including Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and former National Security Advisor General Mike Flynn, concerns cloud seeding, the practice of chemically inducing rainfall from clouds in areas affected by drought. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she says, I am introducing a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. It will be a felony offense. I've been researching weather modification and working with the Legislative Council for months writing this bill. It will be similar to Florida Senate Bill 56. We must end the dangerous and deadly practice of weather modification and geoengineering. I think that sounds reasonable. I mean, certainly there's going to be a lot of people out there who say, well, but drought is real. And if we can actually avoid drought by cloud seeding and bringing moisture down, then, we can maybe save crops and we would prevent famine. And that's also true. But I just don't see how this type of weather modification is legal. There's just got to be other ways to deal with drought that don't impact everybody. Just because, this is like vaccinating the air, spreading vaccines through the air and saying, well, some people get sick, so we're going to vaccinate all of you through the air, or we're going to fluoridate all of the water because some of you don't brush your teeth. It's the fact is that if you specifically have a problem, it shouldn't concern all of us and alter all of us and potentially cause a huge catastrophe for all of us. So this article goes on and says, as of Tuesday, over 2.6 million people have viewed the post on X by a well-known conspiracy theorist account, which suggests a link between the deadly floods and cloud seeding operations conducted 2 days earlier by Rainmaker, a weather modification startup funded partly by U.S. software billionaire Peter Thiel. So there you have it right there. Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill is dead on arrival because Rainmaker, the company that seeded the clouds 2 days before the catastrophic floods in Texas, is funded by Peter Thiel, which means the billionaires are going to step in and say, hey, don't you mess with our weather modification tech. We're going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep your mouth closed. And by the way, here's a bunch of money for your next campaign. In another post, viewed over 2.8 million times, the same account claimed that the state of Texas is running 7 massive cloud seeding programs in an attempt to enhance rainfall across millions of acres, and questioning, did they push the clouds too far and trigger this flood? Why is that considered a conspiracy theorist question? To ask, hey, so let me get this straight. You had planes in the sky, or drones, spraying chemicals in order to induce rain. Suddenly, a storm happens just 2 days after you do this, and it causes catastrophic flash flooding because the rainfall was just a bit too much to where it ended up causing catastrophic flash flooding. Isn't it a fair question to ask, did your rainfall that you created, that man-made rainfall, did that contribute to the breaking point of this rainfall and flood, getting it to the point where it was flash flooding, catastrophic flash flooding? Did your rain, you only need a little bit to get it to that breaking point. So did your rain cause that little bit? It's very possible. That is a normal, natural question to be asking. And it doesn't, if you stop and think about it like a logical human being, there's nothing conspiratorial about that question at all. Accompanying this post was a video originally published on TikTok on May 2nd, in which the user questioned whether blue rain at a camping site in Texas was linked to chemtrails, or in the video description, cloud seeding. The video had been viewed over 3.1 million times by Tuesday. So yeah, they found that if the rain is blue, when it's blue and weird looking, that it does have to do with cloud seeding. The claims gained traction among certain right-wing politicians, including Christian nationalist and conspiracy theorist Marjorie Taylor Greene. And it goes on to say General Mike Flynn, former national security advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump during his first term, further peddled the theory to its 2.1 million followers on X. Okay, so what is cloud seeding? Let me just play for you, rather than read this article, let me just play for you a video that also further explains cloud seeding so that we can fully, completely understand it.
There are currently 42 cloud seeding projects across the American West, like this one in Utah, where they take planes like this with flares attached. They fly right into the storm and send microscopic particles into the cloud. particles that act like magnets for water droplets, bonding together until they are heavy enough to fall to the ground as rain or snow. At the University of Colorado, researchers are working on artificial intelligence to deploy cloud seeding drones.
And it's not just cloud seeding from the sky. There are hundreds of those things. That shack you see in the foreground is a ground-based cloud seeder. The little flame coming out is sending tiny silver iodide particles up into the sky. When a storm comes through, they go up to 2,000 feet above our head, into the storm, up those mountains, and make more snow than it naturally would.
While cloud seeding has been helping get every last drop out of some of the driest years on record, this past winter, Mother Nature came through. The Southern Rockies, which feed the Colorado River, got more than 4 times their average snow. But experts say it's still not enough.
As much as cloud seeding is a boost or a help, it's not a solution. The main solution is
conservation.
cloud seeding is most successful in wet years, so this was a huge winter for them. They actually stopped early because Mother Nature was giving up so much. Now, studies have shown that the environmental impacts from the silver iodide, on the current scale, there are no impacts to snow or rain, also downstream, so it doesn't impact, the other weather. They do anticipate at least 200 more ground cloud seeders in the future, and the federal government has committed $2.6 million to seeding.
Oh, yes. Okay. So there's a lot of money already invested in this. You have billionaires like Peter Thiel who are behind the company Rainmaker, which is the biggest company that's doing all of this. And they even admit here in this news report that, they had to stop doing the cloud seeding. At whatever point this is an older news report, but just saying that they had to stop because there was just so much moisture and there was just, a lot of precipitation. And so they didn't really need to be doing it anymore, which means that if they don't realize, if the humans who are prone to error don't recognize that, hey, there's a storm front coming in, and they continue to cloud seed and create more moisture in the clouds, why wouldn't you think that would contribute to the breaking point leading to catastrophic flooding? Why wouldn't you ask that question? So this article goes on to continue talk further about the cloud seeding, saying Rainmaker, the company at the center of the Texas flooding claims, is contracted across the western United States by various municipalities and state governments to produce more water in regions impacted by drought, including in California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Texas. Okay. So, by the way, listen to that list. That's not just blue states. This is a liberal problem. These are conservative states. Texas is obviously a red state. Conservative states, liberal states, it doesn't matter. They're all in on this cloud seeding thing. Spraying chemicals into the air, causing moisture, causing precipitation for all of us, thinking that it's a good idea for humans to mess with Mother Nature. I don't think it's a good idea. The most recent operation in the vicinity of Kerr County, where the floods took place, was on July 2nd, 2 days before the floods. Hence the speculation that the cloud seeding activity could have exacerbated the heavy rainfall. Yeah, that's what we want to know. Here's some quotes. Could cloud seeding have contributed to the Texas flood? This is where they tell you you're a conspiracy theorist. The flooding unequivocally had nothing to do with Rainmaker's activities or any weather modification activities, insisted the CEO. Well, obviously, what is he going to say? Again, why are they quoting that guy? This is DW now quoting. So NBC News had him on, and now DW saying, we asked the CEO of the company, and he said, no, they had nothing to do with it. So there you go. Case closed. Here's another one. Cloud seeding might be able to modify a cloud that already exists, but a large thunderstorm requires a huge amount of water and energy, explains ICL's Greispert. Cloud seeding cannot provide either of these. It only creates small modifications to existing clouds. Yeah, you're right. Also, cigarettes, right? I mean, you're just talking a little tiny cigarette. How could that possibly create a wildfire? How could it possibly cause a catastrophic wildfire that burns down 100 houses and takes lives? No way. It's just a tiny cigarette with a tiny flame. There's no way it could cause all of that. Yet it does, time and time again. Travis Herzog, award-winning chief meteorologist at broadcaster AB13 in Houston, Texas, concurs, stating in a Facebook post, on July 6th, cloud seeding cannot create, on July 6th, he wrote this, cloud seeding cannot create a storm of this magnitude or size. Right, just like a cigarette butt can't create a wildfire of that size and magnitude. No, just don't you think about the obvious, okay? Don't actually connect any dots. In fact, cloud seeding cannot even create a single cloud. All it can do is take an existing cloud and enhance the rainfall by up to 20%, and even that's on the high end. It can take, how much do you need for the flooding to become catastrophic flash flooding? For a rainstorm that would be otherwise a big rainstorm, a bad rainstorm that would probably flood or just heavy rainfall, how much more do you need for it to be at that tipping point where it causes catastrophic flooding? Because 20% sounds like a lot. Seems like you would need less than that in order to get it to the tipping point. He says, and even then that's on the high end. It's physically impossible for cloud seeding to have created this weather system. I don't think people are thinking that the cloud seeding caused the actual storm. And, you know, and hey, maybe. I mean, I'm not gonna say that's not possible, because of course anything's possible. I don't know what these people do in their labs and what they're coming up with. But certainly if you have an existing storm rolling in and you start to put chemicals in the air that are going to attract even more moisture, and you already have a big event like this coming in, yes, I think there is a real serious possibility that that would have caused the tipping point to catastrophic flooding. That's not conspiratorial. Cloud seeding played zero role in the deadly Texas flood. Rudimentary basic physics explains that, explains Matthew Capucci, an atmospheric scientist and senior meteorologist at MyRadar, a leading Florida-based weather app. I mean, these people are missing the point. They're sitting there saying, you are a conspiracy theorist for thinking that cloud seeding could cause a storm this big. What is it conspiratorial to ask, could cloud seeding contribute and put an existing storm over the edge? How hard of a question is this? Instead, they're gaslighting us and they're sitting there saying, you conspiracy theorists thinking that it could create this. That's not exactly what we're asking. In dry environments, added cloud condensation nuclei can help clouds drop subtly more rain, Capucci added. But you don't spontaneously make 4 trillion gallons of water appear in Texas. Again, you know, I'm just sick of this. This is just the same logic that they did to us during COVID. And it was evading the actual question, evading intelligent questions around the subject, and instead just reducing it to a straw man and saying, you're a lunatic. If you think that cloud seeding could cause this huge catastrophic weather storm, you are a conspiracy nut. That's not exactly what we're asking. We're asking, did this cause the catastrophic flash flood? That's not the same thing as asking the question of, did this cause the storm? Storms happen every day, but they don't cause flash floods to this level. Did your cloud seeding push it over the edge? That's what we want to know. Let's ask that question. So I did ask that question of ChatGPT. Actually, I know, ChatGPT is not exactly the most reliable, of course, but nonetheless, just wanted to ask a question because I'm not a meteorologist, I'm not a scientist, and I wanted a quick answer. Is it possible for cloud seeding to have contributed to the flash flood? And, you know, they're all saying that everybody who thinks this or asks the question, and I'm not asserting it either way, I'm exploring what my point is by talking to you about this right now is they're calling anybody who asks this question a conspiracy theorist. And my point is, I don't think it's conspiratorial to ask these questions. I don't have the answers to this. I don't know because I'm not a meteorologist. I don't know the science well enough. I haven't studied the science well enough, to be honest with you. Like COVID, I really dove into it. When it comes to weather modification, I haven't yet. But, you know, maybe I will start doing that, especially if we're going to be having these types of catastrophes. But I just want to know, could this have contributed to it? And ChatGPT, you know, which is heavily censored and doesn't always give you the answers, right, because of the censorship, says, yes, it's possible the company contributed to the flash flood, depending on several factors. Here's a breakdown of how this might realistically happen and what investigators would look at to determine the connection. Right? No, instead they're just calling you a conspiracy theorist, which that right away sets off alarm bells. First, the area was already storm prone. Right, yeah, okay. If heavy rain was already forecast for the region and the company seeded clouds to enhance rainfall for a drought relief or agriculture, it could amplify the precipitation beyond what was safe or expected. Okay, there we go. There's the answer just right there. That was just number one. ChatGPT's not even finished. They seeded the wrong cloud system or seeded too much, number two. So cloud seeding isn't a pinpoint tool. If the operation seeded a system that later intensified due to atmospheric instability, orographic lift, which is air rising over hills or mountains, humidity surges, then it could cause locally extreme rainfall, the kind that leads to flash flooding. Okay, so there's 2. Number 3, the flood occurred downstream of the seeding zone. If rain fell intensely in a watershed area upstream, especially in rural or hilly terrain, runoff could rapidly accumulate, creating flash flood downstream, even if the city itself didn't get much rain. Seeding in the upstream cloud system would be a red flag. We don't know where they seeded exactly. Timing lines up. If the company seeded clouds 24 to 48 hours before the flash flood, that's within the known window for seeded clouds to produce rain, especially in humid or stormy weather. The timeline strengthens a causal link. What investigators would examine: radar and satellite data to determine if rainfall totals were abnormally high or concentrated after seeding occurred, seeding logs and flight paths to confirm which clouds were seeded, when and how much silver iodide or other agents were used, atmospheric conditions at time of seeding. Was the atmosphere already primed for storms? If yes, then seeding may have tipped it into overdrive. Rainfall comparisons. Did the seeded region receive significantly more rain than unseeded neighboring areas? So yeah, final assessment. Cloud seeding alone usually doesn't cause flash floods, but in the wrong conditions, it can amplify natural storms, potentially pushing an already wet system into catastrophic territory. That's what we wanted to know. And that is the answer. And they're not looking into this. Instead, they're calling you a conspiracy theorist for even thinking this question. And yet there is actual logic behind this. And yet they still continue to cloud seed. And yet they're not going to do anything about it because billionaires like Peter Thiel have too much money to make. And they want to continue to be allowed to modify weather and do whatever it is they want to us, thinking that they just can, like they own the skies, like they own the air, like they own the moisture in the sky, the precipitation, like as if they should be allowed like gods to create rain. I mean, this is insanity. We're dealing with insane people who are acting like gods, whether they be manipulating viruses, saying it's for your own good, or if they're putting moisture in the air or pulling moisture down from the air, thinking this is for your own good, or if they're adding chemicals to your water and telling you to drink it because it's for your own good. I mean, we are dealing with psychopaths that think that they can just poison us or harm us or modify our weather systems or poison our drinking water. I mean, this is just absolute insanity. And we need people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are going to say, look, we should have a law against this, because that's actually kind of common sense. If we're in a drought, we got to figure out another way. If you're a farmer and you're dealing with a drought, there's got to be another way that doesn't impact the weather system of us all, that could cost the lives of dozens of children and hundreds of people. That's not okay. Because yes, I get it. A drought and famine causes more death. I totally understand that. We obviously need to have a solution for that. But I don't know if this is the solution. If messing with the air and the water and you know all the things that they're doing, playing God ultimately, I just don't think that's the answer. Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.